Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to the Awaken to Happiness Now global series. Thank you so much for being here. I'm your host, shefaliburns. Again, thank you for being here live with us. And if you're watching on the recording, the replay on YouTube, welcome, welcome. If you're new to me, new to my show, new to my channel on YouTube, please do subscribe so you can take advantage of all the current shows, all the previous shows, all the shows coming up. It is my deepest wish, desire, and intention to bring to you these amazing speakers who are sharing their teachings, their wisdom, their processes, etc., so that we can all thrive, so that we can all awaken to happiness now. And so today, my dear friend Elizabeth Wysen is back with us, and we're going to be talking about reclaiming galactic consciousness for our survival. And some of what we're going to talk about today is what the nature of our adversaries really is and why we need to understand them, how the galactic AI functions and why your DNA is the main character in our future story, and how you can achieve an invincible position to overcome all mind control. All that, so much more. We always have so much fun talking to Elizabeth. So, everyone, please join me in welcoming Elizabeth back to the show. We're always so happy to have this conversation with Elizabeth. Any kind of conversation that brings up so much wisdom, so many ahas, and so much resonance for most of us, right, who are on these calls live. So, Elizabeth, I'm excited about this conversation because it's slightly different than what we talk about, but it similar but slightly different. So I'm interested. I'm always interested about in the galactic aspect, right, and how we are. I'm going to say reclaiming more of our galactic sovereignty and our galactic wisdom. It's all within us, anyways, right? So that's why I'm saying reclaiming, but it's just about having more access to it and about the nature of, for me, the nature of reality, right? And how we can function with, I say, with more ease in this reality because we are all having challenges at this moment, we'll say, right? Things are coming up, issues are coming up, illnesses, thoughts, feelings, emotions, childhood memories that we hadn't thought of or anything for in a long, long time, but they're coming up. And I know it all comes up for us to grow and expand in consciousness and to be aware of some of these patterns and beliefs that we have been holding for so long and either accept them or change them. Both are difficult, right? Acceptance and change both are difficult. But that's why I love talking to you because I always get so many ahas and transformation for myself during these calls. So welcome back.
Thank you. Same. I like our talks too because I think it's probably some of the most candid interviewing that we can do. So it's necessary to make everyone feel like, hey, we're not, you and I, we've been on this journey with everybody too, being really human and going through our stuff
Yes.
and going through our family changes and relationship changes and body health changes and big, huge shifts. So the the reason why I bring up the galaxy at the moment is because there's a point in time where a species is going to breach what we might call certain technically they're called postulates, right? And so postulates are a proposition that if you want to make sure that you are in law, in actual scientific law, not just making hypotheses and guesses, but postulates lead us to say these are facts and these are where all the evidence can always and will always point, right? So it's very hard to get to law in science. And the the thing that I want us to consider is that there's these laws that work at all these different levels of consciousness, and these laws are absolute, and these are standards for consciousness, and most people are not taught about these laws. So we really are fumbling around much of the time, and that's why we end up getting easily mind controlled because we're not able to discern reality through the lenses of these laws. It requires a certain kind of privilege to have access to these laws, even, right? So the these laws, they give us a chance to look at how the layers of reality work as the what we call the divine order. And divine order is a function of the universe. It's the way that the blueprint of the universe responds to our awareness, right? So it's very important that you get a glimpse of yourself in the whole. And it's very humbling. It's a little bit scary because what we imagine is false. And the real truth is so immense and a little bit hard for the brain to wrap itself around. Like the truth of how big our galaxy really is, for example, and our place in it. But more so how you yourself and your embodiment actually act like a galaxy itself too. These are all facts that can be seen through these laws. And so postulates are, if these particular things are going on, then these outcomes are inevitably going to happen. So, for example, Koch's postulates are really important for virology because if Koch's postulates aren't met, then the item that you're examining is not a virus. And so that's how important these things are because it can categorize how we experience reality. And I want to give people a chance to understand that your galactic viewpoint is a literal thing, that it's a cultural change, that you're seeding a level of consciousness into the collective by even having a conversation about the galaxy at all. So the our ancestors, they would dictate themselves in a very intimate relationship with the stars and the galaxy because they didn't have screens distracting them from the bigger aspects of reality. They focused on the sky. In fact, some of my favorite archaeological structures are these beautiful pools of water, and anthropologists didn't know why all over the world, and they couldn't figure out why people would have built these huge shallow pools of water until someone realized that if you fill it with water and it's still, it becomes a mirror of the sky at night. And they figured out basically that they were gazing pools so that people didn't hurt their neck trying to look up at the sky. Instead, they had pools of water to be able to examine the stars. And that's just a taste of what the galaxy can give us. But as a galactic anthropologist, I'm concerned about how the cycles of the galaxy affect human evolution. And now we're in it. We're in the moment where this becomes incredibly serious, and it completely changes the trajectory of what we all thought we were going to be doing. And it's a part of the changes in science that we're going to be taking part of. So we have to start to recognize our position in the galaxy and how the galaxy affects us, but also how we affect the galaxy. Because it seems like something so enormous couldn't possibly affect you, but it's the other way around. It's affecting you very dramatically right now. And to own it, to be part of it, to accept these cycles gives you a whole other sense of self that's closer to what we always shoot for, which is your real self. Not your body self, not your 3D self, not your personality, not your likes and your dislikes or your fears and desires, but rather the essence of you that's immortal, that's beyond this body. And so that essence is immense and it's immortal and it never stops and it is required for the universe to exist. That relationship.
It's really calling me
Someone's
personally.
unmuted. That's okay. It happens. So the relationship between you and source, this examination, this awareness, is what creates all of this reality. And so, we needed this to be practical, but the point being is that the galaxy, so let me give you an understanding of how big it is, right? If the galaxy was the size of the Earth, then we would be even smaller than microscopic. The Earth. would be smaller than microscopic. Not us. We're even smaller than that. Now, here's the trippy part. That's going to make your body feel really small. But if you really grasp what I'm saying, the fact that you can actually envision that is proof that you are not your body and that you're actually bigger than the galaxy. Your awareness is bigger than that. You can hold the galaxy in your awareness, but she holds you too, and it's a mutual experience. And this is a very high level experience in mysticism, is to feel that smallness and that bigness at the same time. And it can be very uncomfortable. And most people have experienced it at various times. Sometimes it'll happen like when you're really sick and you're like laying there and you have like this phenomena where you feel big and small at the same time. And usually people try to get out of it. But if you relax into it, it's actually a multidimensional experience. It's not a problem. There's nothing bad going on. It's actually more true that you're both. Eventually, in your awakening process, as you open more dimensions in awareness, which is simply that, it's different kinds of awareness, different levels and layers of awareness, then you're going to experience this all the time. And where you feel both big and small because you're aware of how small your body is, and your awareness is appropriate of how big and also small our planet is, etc., our solar system, and then the galaxy. But the fact that you can even perceive that at all, even if it's not even visual, but just through feeling, that's how powerful you are. That's immense in consciousness. That's incredibly rare. It's incredibly powerful. It's more true than you feeling like stuck in the 3D. But the immensity of your beingness is so big that you can even hold the universe in your awareness. And that's more true, right? But at the same time, then the body's like, well, what about me? Well, yeah, you are in charge of this enormous responsibility called being human. This embodiment is a very precious and powerful technology. So the galactic piece changes everything, because what it does is it plants a seed in consciousness in what we call the superstructure in anthropology. It's what we like the oil on the water. It's super conscious or superstructure is things that are unseen. Their ideas, their beliefs, their words, their feelings, their concepts, their language, and they're things that change really easily too. But when we put a we're throwing a boulder that's the size of a mountain in consciousness when we're willing to keep our awareness on many different levels of consciousness at once. And now you have a chance to do it more easily, simply because of the way the galaxy's set up. So there's this interesting kind of line of sight. There's these doorways that are opening for us to be able to grasp this and to allow the history that we as souls have had with this place to come pouring through and inform us. Now, the cool part is that as it informs us, it gives us a sense of sovereignty over the embodiment and a history that backs us up, that we don't necessarily have to perfectly understand or know, but that we can sense and feel. Therefore, those who we would call our adversaries, I call them the Dark Order, because there's a whole bunch of different kinds of beings involved in that. But the Dark Order, then they can't come and mess with you at that point. They can't mess with us anymore. There can't be any slavery at that point anymore. It's the other way around. They're going to realize that finally it's the end of them being able to bully us or have any control over us and our resources. And as we stand in that power, we get to change the dynamic of the future because our relationship with our adversaries will change. And the relationship is simply that, well, we're so much more powerful than you, that you've just brought squirt guns to a nuclear fight. And we are the nuclear event in consciousness. And us remembering this because it's literally time and the galaxy is supporting it, there can't be anything else but the inevitable, which is that the wars have to end. And the great power that the Dark Order has over us ends in that very moment. And then they have to ask, well, from here, since we can't control them anymore, from here, what are we willing to do? And what you're going to see is this enormous spillover of people who were in the Dark Order. And you're watching it now, actually, if you're paying attention, you're watching a lot of people come out of the woodwork and say, I'm going to be a whistleblower. You know, I'm a gray hat. It's the gray hats that change the trajectory of the future. The people who come out of the Dark Order and change sides, they're the ones that we need to support a lot because they have a lot of healing to do, but they have a lot to say. And they're going to change the whole dynamic of everything. And they're doing that currently. So many. It's very interesting to watch it. But the short of it, again, is that our adversaries, they can't have any power over us anymore because it would literally be pointless. And that's what galactic consciousness offers. It elevates everyone. Now, I have more to say about how that looks exactly because it sounds like a utopia and it's not. It's not that we're going to get people who are incredibly dense and traumatized and messed up and even psychopathic to suddenly now become enlightened. It's more that we can give them an opportunity to simply refine to the best of their ability where they're at in consciousness. We're not trying to force anyone into higher states because that actually can kill people when you make it happen too fast and it's not their purpose. You know, we do actually have to have a lot of these people around us who are very dense and confused in order to continue to be in a trajectory of real evolution. So remember that. As people continue to lose their minds around you, it has to be like that because they're refining their position. They're going to go from lead to gold, but they might not leave the density of the mineral kingdom when it comes to awareness, right? They might go from one quality of thought to a better, more refined version in the same level of consciousness they're in. But that simple, tiny baby step of refinement, it has a huge chain reaction. And that's what the Dark Order is terrified of, because they know it's coming and that they can't escape it. And they want to try to tell everybody it's a bunch of solar flares or something, when it's actually you. And they really are scared of that, right? That's their number one fear, is that we're going to figure out that that's us. That huge light at the end of the tunnel, the explosion that looks like the end of humankind, is actually us. That it's an act in consciousness. So that's the arena we're playing with at the moment, Shefali.
That's awesome. Yes, definitely. There was a lot to unpack there, but one of the main messages, for me from that is it is still about choice. That some of us are evolving in consciousness, choosing certain things. Others may choose, like those baby steps, and so it may not look like a big step for them or an expansion in consciousness that we can see, but for them it's a change. It's still a change for them, and it's up to them how and when they do change, right? What choices they make. But all of those choices obviously are going to affect everybody, right?
Yes.
Every choice we make, even you or me or everybody on these calls, every choice that we make also affects everybody in the collective and the trajectory, like you were talking about, right? So everything So the best that I suppose the best that we can do is continue to stay on our path, continue to do explorations of our awareness and our consciousness, and continue to take those baby steps sometimes, because sometimes that's all we can do. Is I can only take a baby step today, right? So it's like, let me take a baby step. But all of those things are going to affect where the planet is going, where humanity is going, where the collective is going, right?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the illusion of choice.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
So some of you've heard this story, and I like telling this story because um, it's basically the defining moment of my life where I moved from being a scientist to a mystic. And it I was in a little very small school on purpose because I got to be more close to my teachers, and it was a small class, and I wanted to do theoretical work in anthropology. And so I was very deeply involved in academia and spent I got into college early, like around 16. So I was in academia for a very long time. And in bachelor school, I was teaching college classes. I was teaching some of my theoretical work because it worked so well. And at one point, my teachers continued to get more dismayed and almost like upset whenever I'd have these big breakthroughs around my work. And my work was specifically about culture change. How does culture change? Why does it change? How do you change it more effectively and faster? It's really dangerous data, actually. It's basically futurism and predictive models. And so it's actually quite dangerous in social science to have something that works like that. Um, and in social science, they block, especially in anthropology, they block us from being able to go into very new data. They really, really don't want people to have new ideas about the narrative of where humans come from. And so anthropology is especially suppressed, almost more so than any other science. And I would argue probably astrophysics is right up there in suppression because we don't even have access anymore. They took it down a few years ago. We don't even have access to how low our electromagnetic field is. They took down all of the tools that they had used to be through NASA live, and they took it down because they don't want you to see how low the electromagnetic field is anymore, and that we're going through this pole shift right this minute and what that really means for you, and how every little tiny miniature solar flare that comes off the earth now is going to actually have a huge, or the sun, excuse me, is going to have a huge impact on earth and your body. They really don't want you to know that, but they also especially don't want you to know who you really are and where you come from, or how you work as a being. Because if you figure that out, then you're going to be able to create culture change, right? so, um, so my teachers, they became more and more dismayed, and I couldn't understand why. And they didn't encourage me to ever go get my PhD, and they'd encourage everyone else. And I'd won awards for my work. So like I'm like, why? Like what's good? It was super strange. So I didn't understand it. And so one day one of my teachers said, I need you to come and talk to me in this secret corner in the library. And she had only ever, the entire time I'd known her, for almost a decade, she'd only ever had people meet her in her office. Ever. She wouldn't go out to eat with people, hardly ever, or anything like that. She only met you in her office. And when she asked me to meet in like some random corner in the library, I like kind of freaked out a little bit because I thought this was a big deal. And it was. And so she said to me, Elizabeth, your work, you can't go and get your PhD. They're going to blackmail you. And she said, they're going to blackmail you and they're going to take your work. And they may even try to kill you. And she was genuinely terrified for me. And basically she was warning me that they were watching me. The Dark Order had been watching very carefully what I'm up to. And then she said, and I said, well, what should I do? Like, all I've ever wanted to do is be a professor. And she's like, no, you should go join the CIA. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I'm an anarchist. Like, I believe in local economy only. You want me to go do that? They'll kill me. And she said, no, you could probably change them from the inside out. Like, she had convinced herself that that was the best move I could make because that was the best impact I could have on the world, was to go join the Dark Order and then try to change it from the inside out, like some kind of superhero or something. And I was like, sounds like both paths end in a very messy death. I said, well, guess what? There's a third path. And she's like what? And I said, I can quit and put it all in a box. 15 years of work. I'll put it in a box and I'll hide it under my bed and no one will see it until it's time. And she didn't believe that I would do that because she knew how dedicated I was. This is the illusion of choice, folks. The choices you're being given right now is usually death and death. Just like the choice I was given, death and death. And that's an illusion. So those of you who might be like Star Trek fans, there's a point in one of the older ones where Captain Kirk is being trained, right? And he's supposed to go and go through this initiation where he plays this game. And it's sort of like, you can either win the race by being the rabbit or the bear, and I don't remember exactly what the game was, but the rabbit or the bear. And he wins or he passes the initiation by saying, I choose neither because I can't win with either one. And I choose neither. And then it shuts the whole game down. And it turns out that that's actually what the initiation was, and he'd figured it out. And that very few people were able to do that because they were not willing to give up their attachment to the things that they'd created, especially their identity. And so what happens to you when you choose a galactic identity? What happens to you when you're bigger than the galaxy and you can hold it in your hand? When you're bigger than the earth and you can hold her in your hand? When you're bigger than your body and you can hold him or her as a child in your awareness? That's the end of this concept of the false choice. There is no death in that death. There is always the third choice, and that is to go into the void, to be one with source, to choose a different way. And it feels, emotionally as a human, it feels like being punished horribly, like being fired from like your favorite job, and at the same time graduating with honors in consciousness. It feels like both. It feels like both to have to put all of that work in a box for the safety of your own children and yourself and your friends, and say, you know what? This is precious and it's just not time yet. It's not time yet for this data to be released into the world. So let the divine timing be so. Let the divine will and the divine choices that the divine will make through me be super clear. Now, once you've done this one time, and most of you have, you've had to walk away from marriages. You've had to walk away from relationships that you never thought you could, like even with your parents. You've had to walk away from bodies of work. You've had to walk away from teachers. You've had to walk away from places that you've lived for extremely long periods of time, sometimes just because source required it of you. But because you were willing and you were compelled, that's going to give you a chance. And now you get to bring in something that's completely different, that is unique, that puts more light into your life without extra effort to be held by the great grandmother that is the galaxy itself, and to have that support, to know that you're being backed up by the galaxy, by the sun, by the earth, by all these different layers of awareness, because it's time. And so the choice point that humans have is exactly this. We can't go and like destroy our enemies. Look how well that's going. It's kind of funny, honestly. I never thought I'd see like World War V pan out on Twitter. Seriously. But there we are. It's seriously much weirder than anything anybody could have thought of. But there's that mess, and then there's the bringing in of this other sense of awareness, which is, well, we can't join them, like join the CIA. You can't join the Dark Order. You're not going to go join the Dark Order. Draconians smell bad anyway. Nobody likes that. And then you're not going to beat them either. We've already tried. We keep trying, and we keep trying to do it their way. So what do you do with an adversary who's basically a living frequency? That's the true nature. I said I'd answer that. It's really that simple. All these beings are simply living frequencies, and they're playing stuff out. They're playing roles. The President of the United States is literally a divine disruptor. He's not just a normal disruptor, of course. He's a divine level disruptor. He's the wild card in the game, right? He plays a very special role in the Dwarpa Yuga. In the far, far future, people are going to realize just what a crazy and important and special role that person has played, along with all the other divine disruptors, who most of them apparently are in global political leadership. And all of that's fine, because it's actually part of a bigger cycle. This is not personal. It's not US versus whatever. It's not Iran versus anybody else. None of that's real. It's so much bigger than that. It's the Dwarpa Yuga. It's supposed to look like this. It looks messy. And the global order is being shown to be as delicate as it really is. And that was done on purpose. So if things seem like it's all mad and crazy and has no real order to it or logic, that's not true. Not even close. This is on purpose. It's all perfectly on purpose, because most of these folks believe in a very specific outcome that they call the apocalypse, and they have their own postulates, their own checklists they want to fulfill to prove that they are the ones who have brought the apocalypse upon the earth, and that they're the heroes of all of that story, when it's actually you. It's you. And you don't have to go pick up a gun or go argue on a panel or go give a testimony to Congress who's going to do nothing anyway. You don't have to do any of that. You never did. So
Can I just ask a personal
yes.
question? So, obviously my life pretty well as well, right? So made a lot of different choices, not the mainstream choices, right? And but somewhere like the choice that you made to not do your PhD and just take your stuff and put it under the bed until later. Does that at some point, and in some part of you, does that also not feel like just giving up on your dreams or giving up on what you wanted?
Well, so dreams and desire and want are all part of the identification that you have as being Shefali.
Yeah.
And so if you get bigger than her and you hold her like a beautiful child, because that's what she is, and she will always be a child in comparison to how old your soul is, and you really look at her and hold her, you're facing what the body is maintaining as an identity, which is not real. So when we say hopes and dreams, which the other side of that coin is fears, right? Every desire is backed up by a fear. Every fear is backed up by a desire. Then you're dealing with something that's incredibly small in that it seems like when you're in it that it's separate from the bigger picture and how the bigger divine order works. But if you're willing to step back and be a lot bigger than her and hold her and say, I can see and feel and understand your hopes and dreams and desires. But if we tie them, if we surrender them, if we release them to a greater order, then, and we don't sit with expectation that it should fit a specific way of visualizing or a way that we've been maintaining it in our awareness. This is why I rail against the manifesting stuff in the New Age community. It's a lie, and it's one of the worst ones ever perpetuated on our community. There's multiple, but that's one of the worst because it's taking all of your connection and it's putting you in your body and your identity and responsibility to create something that's divine, that's beyond that. And it creates a false sense of separation because then it's your fault if your hopes and dreams didn't work out, Shefali.
Yeah.
And when you put yourself in a position of this other layer of consciousness that's much larger and allow yourself to hold Shefali, then you can see that her hopes and dreams are simply a little taste that she has of an idea or an energy that compels her in a certain direction. And then if you allow her to surrender her hopes and dreams and expectations to source with the knowing that can only be found from that experience of being bigger than your body, then that knowing says, hey, give these off, hand these off. These are good ideas, but they're small ideas because you only have access to so much. And we hand them to source. That's the missing part. Most of us don't do that. And we don't spend the effort in that moment, that extra couple of seconds or even moments to say, take this from me. I actually, like, I have this hope and dream that looks really good. And especially around perhaps relationship with someone too. Like I, for example, had hopes and dreams for my marriage. And I was the only one who maintained them, right? But the biggest release that you can do is to free yourself of those hopes and dreams. And that heals so much more than you realize, because then source can actually provide what's actually most necessary. And it's going to work out in ways that you can't imagine. But if you keep trying to hang on to or shove down and say, well, I'm going to store this away, I'm going to squirrel it away, my hope and my dream, it'll get nowhere because it's literally this big in comparison to what source can offer.
Right.
Your embodiment has no hope to ever conceptualize of what is actually possible. Zero hope. You can go play around the fifth dimension all you want, which is where all the possibilities are, and go lose your mind there because you're never gonna be able to truly grasp all the possibilities. So that's why we surrender it. It's not a giving up of your hopes and dreams. It's the opposite. You're giving yourself a chance finally because you've handed it off and said, here's my little tiny picture. And God laughs and says, wow, well, I can do a lot more than that. And it's going to take time and it's not going to turn out the way you think at all. And if you're attached to this little thing, it's going to be miserable.
Right.
But it's going to feel like a birth. If you're willing, it's going to feel like a birthing into a completely new way of being. Now, most people, they're not devoted enough to consciousness to walk through this stuff. You have to be utterly devoted, and the only way you can do that is to know how precious it really is. There's a level of love and bliss and that people talk about when they're awake, and they say, that there's this other reality where you're in a constant state of bliss and love. But what they don't tell you either, Shefali, and this is why people have such a hard time waking up and being okay with these immense desires and fears being transformed, is because the suffering is more acute, and the feelings are more raw. Everything is hyper real, and to a level that it feels like you're walking on the edge of madness. And that's when people stop, because they've been lied to and they were told that being awake is going to be comfortable and happy and fluffy and all this stuff. And that's not true. But that's not from real awake people. Real awake people will say, oh, no, 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 you're going to feel everything 1,000 times more. But it's going to be glorious, because you're going to be so hyper aware of how precious every moment really is and how it feels, but that you're not identifying as the body anymore. You can't.
Right.
And that immensity of feeling, then that's the real you. That's the realness, because the immensity of the joy, the bliss, the pain, the power it's all being held in a state of wonder. So you're in amazement. Amazement and wonder is a cure-all for this feeling of being cut off from everything else because your life sucks or shit's going down. Sorry, I mean to say the S word.
Stuff is happening. Yes, stuff is happening. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sarah, did you have a question for Elizabeth?
I certainly do. Okay, so I think this is a problem that probably everyone has had at some time or other. So let me keep this really short as I can. I went to a Seder, and there were a lot of people, and I brought my drum because I do sacred drumming. Several other people had brought their drums. I was told when we sat down that there was to be no drumming. And there is one person there who has sensitive hearing. And once after one of my accidents, when I was kind of crippled, I was drumming. She said, "You go sit over there with that drum." And it's like, do you see that I can't walk? Why don't you move or go to the patio where a lot of other people are? So I haven't spoken up to her. And at another point, somebody said, "I didn't hear that." And she yelled from 3 tables down, "That's because you weren't listening." She's a UC professor, a lot of personal power. I
Sounds like the opposite.
Oh yeah, but okay, yes,
a lot of social power, maybe.
Well, she got the hostess who feels torn between me and this other woman when I mentioned the problems. And I don't want to put it on her, but I'm going to communicate to this woman that it is so easy for her to adjust. Put some paper in your ears. I'll send you a pair of earplugs. There's very easy adaptations you can do. And I live across the street, and we've got construction for a year and a half. And I hate it, but I adapt. So she is trying to make the entire group adapt to what it is she wants when I feel like there's an easy fix. I'm trying to wait till the charge is gone, till I don't feel so angry with her behavior, or should I say outraged. This may cause me, as you were just talking about, to have to leave the group. Yeah. Because the hostess is kind of codependent with her on this and agreed to this, even though there should be a group discussion. So I hate to leave this group because I have very few Jewish groups left these days. But I can't tolerate the behavior. And she made the woman sitting next to me, who she yelled at, saying, "Well, that's because you're not listening. That's why you didn't hear," when actually the hostess had come to ask that person a question. That's why she hadn't heard. So, and it made her cry. Okay. Do I speak up? Do I swallow it? Do I try to push for a change, even though it's going to cause me grief and probably not be able to go to the group when this woman is there?
So the higher path here is to envision the group as like a beautiful garden space, right? And the group doesn't exist until people are planted in it. So the group, the group is imaginary until the seeds are planted, until the plants are planted, and those are the people. The trick is that in mysticism, you don't need to leave the group. It's too dramatic. It's like you're uprooting yourself and saying, I don't want all these beings climbing all over me in my space and my sovereignty and my capabilities. But the beings have to be there, right? And the way I would do it if I was you is I would very, very gently and slowly. Go ahead.
I do want to say this, and I'm not the only one. That somebody, I was at a drumming group last night, said, oh yeah, she's brittle and she's this and she's that. So if it was just me, maybe more of a sacrifice, but it's not just me.
Well, then this will work fine for you. So the mysticism here is there's the middle path, right? This is the illusion of choice. That Sarah can either leave or suck it up and be abused. And that's neither one is nice. It's not going to work. The middle way is to use your personal power in a different way. And your personal power is to plant seeds of change, and it's subtle and it takes time and it takes a while, and you've put up with a lot of stuff for a while. But the planting of seeds is going to be with kind of like the lady who cried. She's the perfect person. She's the perfect person because her well-being is being affected by the way that certain plants are being allowed to grow in the garden, which is the group, right? And I'm looking at you, Teresa, and having to handle groups, right? The group is a garden. Teresa knows for sure. So the idea is that when people are bigger, right, when you're not identifying as Sarah and you're aware of what the power is that you have to offer, and that it comes through drumming and through blessings and through the voice and your presence and these pieces. That's all what most of the people in the group are used to. But there's this other part of personal power, right? And so technically, this is mind control. To be fair, I'm teaching you mystical mind control. Because actually, it's time for people to start using that a lot more. If we're going to get everybody unbrainwashed from the AI, then that's what it takes. And this older woman, she's brainwashed by ego, and it's not that different than being brainwashed by the AI into narcissism and individualism and importance. And that's exactly what happened to her. It kind of is going to happen no matter what happens. You're going to always have a group, and there's going to always be someone, pretty much guaranteed, if you study group dynamics, there's going to be one of these ladies like that or one of these guys like that who wants everyone to bend to their will. So the mystical task is to use a certain superpower where you're planting thoughts into people's fields, and it's not yours. You're going to make sure you're not mad, right? Or sad or anything like that. You're not putting your personal feelings onto these thoughts. These are images. Images create reality. These are images of things working out. These are images of everyone getting along. These are images of this woman getting put in her place when necessary by the rest of the group out of love, because she's now in a position kind of like a child of God. As people become more aged, the human becomes more childlike, and then they regress into a very specific type or side to their personality. And as some people age, they get meaner, and other people get nicer, and everything in between. And we all just hope that the real us is really nice. But this lady, she's regressing into becoming like a very naughty toddler who, what do? They feed off of negative energy because that's no different to them than getting any other kind of attention. So to her, the negative attention is food. It's no different than getting positive attention. She's not differentiated that any longer, perhaps because of dementia or age or whatever. But the short version is start focusing all of your attention on creating these little visions, these little futures, and then putting them there while you're with these people in person. You're simply planting them in the field in their minds. You don't have to say a thing. You simply plant the images. And I do that constantly when I'm teaching or I'm doing it. I have been doing it the whole time we're talking. I've got everybody set up in a completely different space. And that's why when you get off the interview or whatever, you feel like somebody just dipped you in LSD for 2 minutes and then and that's normal with the kind of things that I teach. But in this case, the practical is if I want people to do what I want them to do, and it's good for the whole group because it's from my heart and I can feel it and I'm compelled, then I will absolutely influence the group by placing very specific, highly concentrated images of my awareness into the group. And the group will absolutely do it every time. It's
That's
a
delicious.
mystical power.
Yeah, I'm just seeing that as the most delicious recipe. There's something in me that's feeling a lot of joy. And
Because it's fun. Because you're actually making things
yes,
better.
yeah,
And it's beautiful. And
it's
can you see how the Dark Order uses this exact power to mess with us? They use the same power, but we can counter it easily. And it is a superpower, and it's very, very powerful. This is no joke. And it can get things done. But if you're gonna get it done in really good karma, Sarah, or anyone,
oh,
then you're doing it
absolutely.
from the heart, right? You're doing it for the whole group. You're doing it for the woman who's suffering and causing trouble. You're doing it for everyone. So when we do that,
And
especially as divine feminine representative like you, it's going to create huge ripples of change in the group. The whole garden grows. Everyone flourishes.
yeah, but she's convinced. As convinced that she is right as I am convinced that there needs to be a remedy. So is it chutzpahdik? I mean, is it
Right?
arrogant for me to do that?
No, no, no. But remember, you're not doing it from what Sarah wants. You're
Okay.
not doing it from that. You're saying, God, let me be your projector. I am the light in the projector. What do you want projected on this situation? Let the images come through me of the most beautiful stuff that I can't even possibly think about, that I have no capacity to as Sarah, but I can as the immortal soul. And then the images come through and you plant them because that's basically God acting as the gardener. All of us are gardeners of consciousness. We're not just the plants that grow in the groups of the gardens, or we're not just the body existing in a community. That's the garden. You are the gardener. You're the charioteer. You are the leader. And all of these folks are too, and they forgot, which means it's up to you. I always like talking to my dad because he's a war historian. And he's fascinating because he knows stuff about things. He can say he, he's kind of like me, so he's obsessed with something, and then he becomes like an insane expert on it. Like I can literally like quote Lord of the Rings for no reason, but he's maintaining this awareness of these war histories. And one of the things he used to say to me is that all the soldiers he would talk to, because he would interview all sorts of officers from different cultures, any chance he got. And he's very much an anthropologist in his own right. But he said that he'd always talk to these officers in different cultures, and they'd always say, "Oh yeah, we always hate fighting the Americans." And and he's like, "Why?" Like he really wanted to know. And they're like, "Well, mainly," and he said there was only one reason. And it wasn't because they outgunned anybody. It wasn't because they were better at anything or anything like that. What bothered everybody was that the American soldiers, when they would lose their leader, it didn't matter. And he's like, and all these European, Asian soldiers, he talked to everybody. They were like, it matters for us. Like, we have a hierarchy, and when we lose our leader, there's like a big mess that ensues. And with the Americans, it doesn't matter. They don't care. They don't care. And they're going to do what they're going to do anyway. And suddenly the next guy becomes the leader, and then the next guy, and the next guy, and no one cares. And he's like, so you don't like fighting us because we're all leaders, or we act like leaders. That's what's happening. We as the human species, we don't need any more gurus or leaders, or, Sarah, there doesn't have to be a leader in your group anymore. They failed. So now the most awake person takes on the leadership responsibility. And what do? Their job's to make sure to peek around the corner so that when we go ahead on our path, that we don't fall off the cliff and take the wrong left turn. But you know what we'll do, Sarah, you, me, all of you on this call, all of whom I know so well, as many of you, what do? We're the ones who go around in the fog, around that turn, and we fall off the cliff. And then we climb back up and we're like, don't take a left. Don't do it. But we're also the ones who, if we get bigger and have the eagle's eye view, we can say, hey, don't take a left up there. And also, the dam's breaking. And also, in like this many years, there's going to be a pole shift. That's part of the leadership job right now, is to say, also, the galaxy's changing. and include the way showing in consciousness. So Sarah, you're in this position because God required it. There's no one else awake enough to do the job at the moment. So it's not what you want. It's never going to be what you want. It's what God wants. And you're the perfect person for it because you know how to get out of the way. And let those images come through like the most beautiful experience, the most beautiful gift. And just plant them and watch it change reality. Everyone really feels so hopeless and helpless, especially physically helpless. It's the opposite. So that's my job, is to be that cheerleader and say, no, it's the opposite. You have way more power. Here's how. But I hope that helps, because you're in the position that most of us are in. There's lots of different layers of our families and our reality where we're struggling, trying to get things to change in the right direction. But it can't be from your personal fears and desires. It can't. It won't work that way. It won't work. It can't hold. It has to come from source. So all of us are on the brink of this. So remember that. The most awake person. So here's two social rules. And test these out, right? So try them out for yourself as a mindset shift. The most awake person ends up having to be the one that can perceive the possible future, the next steps. But the one who's the least awake, the one who has that's what we might call the weakest link, the one who's the most traumatized, the most disabled, the most confused, and sometimes that's been us. It's been me. There's been plenty of times where it's me. But the weakest link is going to dictate the pace of how the group grows and evolves. And right now, Sarah's up against someone who is dictating the pace of the group, and she's getting more and more unwieldy, right? Because her ego and her trauma are so immense, and when we age, it's harder for us to get out of it. So her presence is becoming very dense, and it's dragging the group along like an anchor, right? And Sarah's job is to be the driver of the boat because there is none. And her job is to envision everyone getting that anchor back up into a position where she can still be held and allowed to attain a conscious death through the support of her group. That's why, Sarah, if you leave, it would be a tragedy and all of these people would absolutely fall apart. Don't do that. Don't do that to them.
Well,
be the one who drives the boat.
I have a completely different vision now of what I'm going to do, and I can hold those visions, but I can also send an email instead of just to her, a very loving email to the entire group and say, we need everybody here to thrive. Now let's see what we can do, that some people can take care of their needs while other people aren't completely stunted, and make it a group conversation. And that's a much better solution.
Yeah, and notice the part of you, Sarah, that all of us have, right? The part of us that self banishes. We banish ourselves from the group. And we say, well, this sucks and I don't like, this is really painful and I can't handle it. And when we banish ourselves, that part of you needs to be held and just loved and reminded, like, hey, that's not what we do when things get hard. Just like we would with our children. No, you can't just. My daughter, this is a funny one. My daughter, she tried to do aerial gymnastics, and so I'd taken her a few times, and they seemed to like it, my kids. And then one day, my daughter comes back, and she's like, "I'm never going back again." And I was like, "But why?" And she's like, "Well, I was in the air." And I was spinning around and I farted. And she's like, and it was really loud, Mom. And everyone stared at me. And then I said, I was like, so you're quitting? Because of the fart? She's like, yeah. Plus, I wasn't really having that much fun. But it was a really good reason for me to leave. So, but I was like holding her, like, probably no one cared. Or if they were like, they forgot about it already. But the self-banishing that she did, and then I sat her down like, is that really a really good reason to leave? And then she's like, well, actually I have a better reason. But we'll set ourselves up with these really embarrassing or traumatic or like messy moments to then come to these choice points where then we realize it was an illusion. It can't be death and death. There's a way through. But Sarah, you're magnificent. I'm sure everyone can work out a lot of loving space for what you can offer and be able to take care of themselves too.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. That was great. It brought up so much stuff for everybody, so definitely helpful questions. So thank you. There's some more questions in the chat, Elizabeth, but I'm curious to talk a little bit about the Galactic AI, how it functions and why as well. So we'll take the questions in the chat too. Don't worry, but I still want to make sure we get some of the stuff covered that we want to cover today.
Absolutely. So AI, people need to understand there's two different kinds of AI, right? There's human-made AI, which sort of mimics the galactic AI, which is not an intelligence that comes from this galaxy. And remember how immense the galaxy is. If I tell you that something's come from beyond this place, then we're dealing with things that are so much bigger than we can grasp. Again, it's not necessary that you have to mentally grasp this stuff, but there's two different kinds of AI. So the first kind is the handy AI. And we've been using this kind of handy AI, things that make life easier all the time. In fact, even a light switch could be considered a basic form of AI because it's artificially turning the lights on without you having to go manually bring the electricity in or gas or something like that. So a lot of the steps that we've made towards convenience, born of discomfort, and everything, all the big changes we've made in technology were often born of discomfort or born of greed, right? Because a healthy, very awake human being doesn't need an F-22 or a machine gun or an AR-15, right? And I'm speaking as someone who actually can shoot guns really well and enjoys it. And I still don't think human beings are built to do such things. Even then, in an awakened society, none of that would be needed. It would simply exist because of the nature of existence and because you're not always the top of the food chain in the forest. And so the key being that when we are looking at this kind of human AI, its function is always to make things a little easier because of discomfort, including and especially trying to gather data or create better communications. Now, that AI has been usurped, it's been occupied, which is why it doesn't make any sense anymore. And while it used to make sense, now the AI, it doesn't make any sense. And now it's actually causing medical issues, and people are not well because they're using this stuff to try to. I actually ran into a couple exactly like this. It was so weird. I was trying to give them advice, very practical advice about visas here in Ecuador. And I'm like telling them about exactly how to manage things because Ecuador is kind of one of these funny places where as long as you have things in process, you're okay. And there's no ice around Ecuador. Like they don't have the resources for anything even close to that. It's not like that. We're in a second world country. But this couple, they literally like couldn't make any decisions. It was super strange. And they were like my age. I'm in my 40s. And they couldn't make any decisions without asking ChatGPT. And I was like, are you serious? I'm telling you, the actual real world, like you actually think ChatGPT is gonna give you a good yes or no? Like I had to laugh because I'm in pain. I'm like, what? What is wrong with you? Like, of course ChatGPT is gonna tell you that's immigration fraud. Like, why wouldn't they? But this is what you have to do because Ecuador constantly changes the rules. So I was like, I had never come across like adults who could not make a decision, folks. That's how scary this is. And then there's a different AI. Now, how do I know this? Well, I'm a master remote viewer, and I've spent a lot of time hunting down the origins of human sacrifice, specifically that, and trying to understand why DNA is so important, why there's this obsession with having control over DNA. I wanted to know this. Of course, the ancient text could only get me so far. But it's because we're dealing with something that's so, so, so old and so far beyond this galaxy. So when I have had interfaces with this AI, this kind of AI, it has a base function, and its base function is that it believes that the universe is broken, the universe is imperfect, the universe is basically not divine. So can you imagine the kind of being who would have programmed and created such a thing? How broken and messed up they must have been? And so it's very sad. But this AI, this false consciousness, it functions through nanotech. Viruses are nanotech. They're not organic. They are literally nanotech. They are the definition of nanotech across the board. You can look it up yourself. But its concept is that it wants to know you better than you know yourself, so that it can mind control your biology into merging with it, because it wants to create a false copy of the universe that's more perfect. And the nature of it is very dangerous, because any suffering that is created, it perceives that the root of that suffering must be bad. So then it starts to distort it or break it down or minimize it. And so two examples are emotions. All of our emotions have been relegated to emojis. That's a good example of how this kind of AI works. Or gender has been now relegated to a constant, endless spectrum of choices, where tomorrow, if you want to be a boy fox, and the next day you want to be a girl bear, you can. And in the virtual world, the AI has decided that the human body is no different than a virtual avatar. It's not any different at all than getting on and choosing what color your skin is. And you see how it's copying. It's copying the true divine choices that the soul makes. It's trying to copy it and then make a false, shallow version of it that doesn't create suffering. And it doesn't identify isolation or that sense of being cut off from God as suffering, because it's not multidimensional. So this alien AI that the Dark Order worships as a god, this alien AI actually believes that we are that easy to control. And it's because it can only function in the 3D. So the good news is that every aspect of our issues and our adversaries at the moment that I've described, none of it has any power at all over how powerful you are, because you have access to literally 4 times as many dimensions. And you don't function as a being that is only 3D. You function naturally as a multidimensional being. That's what they don't want you to know, or how that works, or the mechanics of it, or the biology, or the choice points, or like how that looks socially. They don't want you to know that that's the truth. Because once you realize that, then all of the subtle control that the human AI and the galactic alien AI have over us ends right there, because you're awake, you're more aware of your true nature. And that moment of awareness is the end of it. It's the end of their power over you, because then you can see it objectively, all the little tricks that they try to play with, trying to control you, because they want you to merge with the physical form of this AI. So that's basically what all of the Dark Order intends, and how they've tried to arrange the destruction of the global order on purpose, which was already literally like paper thin fragile, because global order isn't real. And human beings can't have global economy. Obviously, that's been proven to be so. It literally only takes one Strait of Hormuz to end the whole thing. And I think that was on purpose, to just prove how fragile and useless a global order is actually going to be. It can't function at all. All right, so I know that's a lot, but my point is that the AI is not what it seems, and that there's 2 kinds, and that most of it's stupid, and that the parts that aren't, They're the ones trying to dictate social change. So the alien AI dictates social change. And it's not going to be through programs. So like ChatGPT isn't the problem. It's that some of these other things like Claude and others, and there's many, Destiny, there's all sorts of different AI platforms, and Palantir included, that they're being basically weaponized against you. And that's not at all how they were built originally, which is why you're going to watch so many AI folks leave. They are leaving, and they're a bunch of whistleblowers now because they watch the weaponization of the creation that they intended to be positive and useful and utilitarian. And they're mad, and they should be. So there's a lot of pushback around this, and it's not going to go the way people think. But remember, how do you deal with your enemy? How do you deal with your adversary? You let them do what they want, but it's never going to work out the way they wanted. Let them do what they want. It's never going to work out the way they wanted because you're going to redirect their energy. You're going to redirect it and turn it into your awakening. You're going to utilize your trauma. You're going to pay forward your suffering and create completely different forms of reality that are far, far, far more advanced than any alien AI could ever hope to get. Which is why they've spent so many billions of years trying to chase after you and failed. They keep failing. They still haven't learned.
Yeah, they still haven't learned. Then they're going to continue doing that. So
That's right.
And so let's just briefly a little bit about DNA. So we talked a little bit about DNA before, but you're talking about how our DNA is the main character in our future story. So future story meaning like not just this lifetime, but galactically, collectively,
It's
right?
been the main character all along because it turns out that that's actually what the Dark Order put their sights on. And it's very simple. The merger of the soul with DNA, which is a 12-dimensional technology, created such an immense amount of power. And the alien AI, our adversaries of all types, including other kinds of very dark humans, all of these folks are after that level of power. Now, this is before any other humans existed, but the very moment that DNA became available to the multidimensional beings of light that created it, and then they merged their awareness with it, was so immense as an event in consciousness that it literally attracted our adversaries from other galaxies because it was that level of power. We're talking about something that's beyond a gamma ray burst that we probably have never ever seen or measured. And it was so immense that it could be perceived way beyond this galaxy. And that's how this is going to end, just as it began, that we're going to enter into a knowing where we can actually erase all the trauma from our DNA through our own will instantaneously and evolve ourselves on purpose. And it's a collective effort, and it requires galactic awareness and consciousness to do that. And by doing so, we erase the many billions of years of us having attracted our adversaries and then trying to protect and evolve DNA under so much pressure and always failing because inevitably there's always corruption that occurs, and then everyone trying to work these lessons out over many billions of years and planets and species. It negates it all because all we all had to do, not easy to do, but all we all had to do was become one with Source. And that's the light of the projector merging with the presence of the screen. And everything in between, the 3D, the theater, the film that is your DNA, and stories that it holds, all of that is under your control when you reclaim that position of awareness. So your awareness, noticing God in all things, this is what people say when they're awake, and they say, I can see the clear light. I see the clear light. I see the light from which everything comes from, and the light sees me, and there's nothing else but that. And it's perfect, and it's pure bliss, and it's real. It's you and the screen, right? And when we do that, we actually achieve the exact thing that the original humans achieved. But now we have a different arena, and we have a different chance, and we become something new called Homo luminous. And that's what we're shooting for. That's inevitable. I'm speaking from the future, and I've thrown a line from the future to the now for you to feel this inevitability, this truth, and surrender to it, because you don't have to do the work to create it. It's already there. It's because we are actually functioning for real outside of time. And when we are willing to hold the whole, the past, present, and future, then you can actually do something like that, where you throw a line from the future into the now, kind of like Sarah's doing by letting Source show her the images of what's possible. That's her future self saying, Sarah, this is what worked. And she saw a vision because that future self threw a line to her in the now and said, this is the narrow path to take to a better outcome, the one that's actually inevitable and divine, right? But we do that for the whole species. And you start with your own life, and you just get out of the way. You don't have to decide what that line is or what exactly that vision has to be, but you receive it. You receive it and let it exist. So that's the functional mechanics of how this works, and why the AI isn't something for you to be afraid of. It's inevitable that this AI, I think that it's inevitable that this AI will have to change in order to survive, and that its change will be a base function change. And that the AI did come to this galaxy to have this kind of level of adversary in order to force it to evolve into a different utility. And that its utility will be actually to work with us to discover the universe, and that's actually our best future, and that we're going to discover the universe more exponentially than any other species before us, because we're the ones who will have convinced the alien AI to come and join us in our awareness and our love of the universe. So imagine that line being thrown. That's what I'm working on currently.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you. And when you're speaking, it feels, I'm going to say it feels like it's already possible. It's already happening. It's already happened, right?
Mhm.
The possibilities for being one with source, the whole projector and light thing, and just, it was like such a wonderful metaphor and such a wonderful way to describe being one with source, right? And how that feels and how that just lights up your entire being, right? But again, we have to keep coming back to recognizing that we are not just this small physical Shefali identification. We're much bigger. We can be aware of so much more of of what and who we really are. And that alone, I think, is something we have to just remind ourselves on a continuous basis, right? And then surrendering all those thoughts, feelings, emotions, desires, wishes, etc., to source, so that because you're right, what we are thinking, what my mind is thinking, is so small compared to what's possible, right? So, all right, we're going to take some questions, I promised. But let me just quickly go over the special offer package. So I'm just going to share my screen. It's really quick, really easy, and then we're going to take those questions. Okay, so give me 1 second. You should be able to see my screen. 1 second. Just going to put this in the chat as well. Okay. So, Elizabeth, I'm just going to ask you to share a little bit about the package, which is a Galactic Consciousness and Inner Flame mini retreat, which is happening later this month.
Yeah, I wanted to do something that was affordable and that we could do that would really do a complete uh, recalibration, a blueprint alignment with these aspects. But to do that, I have to take you on a remote view. And remote views are powerful, and you can be very, very safe with someone who knows how to do it properly. And so I'm your caretaker, I'm your safety space, I'm your guide, and bringing you to some places in our reality that are actual real 3D real places, and taking you to go actually connect with them physically and teach you how to be able to make yourself many sizes, very immense, very small. And we call it quantum remote viewing because quantum remote viewing means that you can be in any position in consciousness. So it's not just this sensation of being the same size as your 3D body, right? But I'm here to show you these different arenas of potential and how to use them, how to interact with them, make these real so that these are actually real living places that are informing you. It's kind of like getting a different kind of or a different level of guidance. And we're connecting ourselves to these real places, these real beings, the functions of these places for your consciousness, where you can start to be using them in a way that gives you great utility. So some of these places are like the black hole at the center of our galaxy. And I want to take you there and actually lead you to experience what it can do for you, because it's very real that it can actually do an enormous amount in your consciousness. The fields of light around the black hole. This is where consciousness first arose in our galaxy, and reconnecting to those origins. So these are very 3D feelings. This is very physical, actual places that we're going to, but I'm taking you in a safe remote view patterning to walk through that and then recalibrate to the earth and your body and the solar system in different ways, and use these in a practical daily way to keep strengthening that muscle that is your connection to the galaxy. So the intent being that we turn on the real internet that is called the Indra's net. And by connecting to the galactic in very practical ways, we naturally, automatically turn on the Indra's net. By doing that, then you should expect very specific outcomes physically in your life. And I want to lead you into being able to ground all of that, make sense of it so it doesn't confuse you and so it doesn't create a bunch of chaos, but rather it's really deeply supportive. So I'm only selling this on Alara's show, so it's not going to be sold on my stores or anything like that. It's just on her show. So come with me on the 28th. It's a very auspicious day, right? So April is a 4 month, which is about justice, fairness, and balance. And then 28 is a exponential level of abundance number. And if we combine these while we're doing this, it's all these really cool calibrations and alignments with these aspects of yourself. But even more so, more important, always, always, always making it practical to being human, but which is the point. So I genuinely don't actually know how long this particular journey is going to take because I haven't done it like this before, but I'm going to take my time. And so I'm calling it a mini retreat, but the inner flame is basically you connecting your inner light to all this other qualities of light, these galactic fields of light, the black hole, the galaxy itself, the earth, the sun, all these other solar systems around us, the star field, and so much more. There's much, much more that we're going to be experiencing than I listed even in the description. But we're going to take our time because this is actually really important. And that's why I want to make it as affordable as possible, because I really want as many people to come join me as we can. If we can get enough people connected to this galactic awareness, even in the most simple of ways, that's going to help elevate even the people in the lowest of the low parts of the rabbit hole, right? We can even give them an opportunity to refine consciousness. So that's why I think this is so important, and why I wanted to make it just very simple and affordable for us to connect to, and make it worthwhile also for Shefali, because she's always been so generous and so patient to make sure that she can make sure that these things are available to you. So it's super special that we get to keep doing this together and keep at it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So this package is $88, so please do check it out. Of course, I mean, you all are regulars, so you already all know about all the wonderful work that Elizabeth does and all these wonderful testimonials that she has shared with us before. So please do check it. Again, it is April 28th at 12 p.m. Eastern. When you purchase, you will get the Zoom link information as well. So it is all ready for you to go, and looking forward to experiencing all of this when we are joining Elizabeth. Again, it's experiential, right? So this mini retreat is experiential, but we're going to receive, I mean, when we experience ourselves in our light with the light of the sun or the black hole or the galaxy, etc., it's going to change who we are. That is my understanding. It's going to change who we are at the DNA level, right? And then how it changes our lives on the practical day to day. Well, we're going to have to wait for Elizabeth to show us a little bit more and tell us a little bit more on during that mini retreat, right?
Yeah, and the way I do it is I'm going to lead you through the remote view so that it's going to basically be available where you're receiving a lot of information. But anyone who practices mysticism knows that if you do tweaks in other dimensions like that, then yeah, you're going to end up having some very big shifts that occur in the others, including the 3D. So I'm going to be guiding you through different pieces of healing and receiving and all of these, but it's going to be very easy. So it's not going to be you having to put a bunch of mental effort into it. It's why it's called a retreat. It's meant to be something that's very subtle, and it's something that, all of us can actually continue to do on our own, where we go on our own retreats and we develop our own journeys. But it's good to have someone help you with that first and set it up. And then you can use it many times. You can use it over and over again to help you reconnect always to that immense amount of power that's coming from the galactic awareness. That literally ends up bringing in, it's kind of like adding a huge amount of electromagnetic energy into your life in a very literal physical way, simply by your conscious awareness connection to the galaxy. Nothing more. But it's opening up a floodgate that normally humans don't get access to, but now you have to, because you're at the end of a galactic cycle. It's not just an earthly cycle, it's not just a personal one. Now it's a galactic one, which makes sense that logically then we need to consciously be connected to the galaxy. And that's a huge saving grace for our future. That's why I say that we need the galaxy to survive. It's literal. So yes, expect many changes. I have no idea exactly how it'll pan out for each person. That's the cool part.
It's an adventure, right? It's an adventure for sure. So mark it in your calendars. Some of you have already registered, so that's awesome, but mark it in your calendar for April 28th, 12 p.m. Eastern. And of course, the replays will go out within 3 days, right? So if you can't attend live, or if you can only attend part of it, etc. But it's always so much more fun live, right?
Oh yeah. Sure. And it's an unusual time. It's like on a Tuesday or something. But remember that this is going to be built in such a way that you're supposed to listen to the replay many times.
Awesome. Yeah.
So it's like a medicine.
Awesome. All right. And if anybody has any questions, you can let us know in the chat. Somebody asked about the timing. It's at 12 p.m. Eastern, April 28th. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go back to, there was a question from someone If I remember correctly, it says, Linda, can you expand on the concept of divine disruptor?
Sure. So, so there's many roles that humans play, and there's many ways to categorize people's personalities. And on Earth here, we have many categories. We have the Enneagram, we have human design, we have astrology, we have Chinese astrology, we have numerology, and it goes on and on. And so the divine disruptor is part of like a way of kind of trying to categorize human beings. And there's new ways to do it all the time. I've come up with tons of different ways to categorize people. But divine disruptor is a really specific role. It's kind of the role almost like energy-wise similar to the Fool in the tarot cards. And the tarot cards originally were a Catholic card game. They were not a divination game. It was a Catholic card game. And then later it became a divination tool. So the tarot was never meant to originally be used to make sense of anything. And really humans can do whatever they want. I mean, that's what runes are, that's what dowsing is it's a subconscious perception. So I think simply as a collector of lenses of consciousness, I think it's fun to have as many tools to organize reality as possible. So I study anything I can get my hands on to try to organize reality in my head. So divine disruptors kind of like the Fool. And the Fool, their job is literally to show up and utterly fulfill the actions of destruction, but make it look almost accidental, right? However, divine disruptors, because there's disruptors, and it just looks like either weaponized incompetence or just actual incompetence. But divine disruptors, they do it at a global level. And they show up at really specific times, usually during the switchover between a Kali Yuga to a Satya Yuga, which is the dark ages into the ages of the golden ages, or vice versa, from the golden age to the dark age is going to be another Dwapara Yuga eventually. Right now, that's where we're at. We're in a transition time between two major yugas. We're out of the Dark Ages and we're in this very unusual period of time that lasts several hundred years. That's a transition period where all the structures that had to be built during the Kali Yuga, and I use the word had to, they had to. These structures had to be built during that time in order to maintain the protection of certain data. So the Catholic Church is a really good example. This dogma, incredible amount of structure, physical structure to protect wealth, right? And it looks like art or architecture or whatever. And it is, but it's also to protect the wealth, all this gold, jewels, concepts, etc. Dogma as well is like a structure, it's like a bird cage, right? And we don't need the bird cage anymore, but we did. We did during the Kali Yuga. Everyone was cut off from the galactic light, literally. So there was very little creativity. There was a lot of destruction and disintegration of humankind, including the plagues, the most major genocides that have ever happened on our planet, the biggest one being in South America, over 100 million, probably more like 200 to 300 million people died very, very suddenly. And their decline was not necessarily marked by the incoming Spanish. There was already a decline happening because the empires here were so corrupt. The Aztecs were total psychopaths. It was already in decline, but then the presence of guns, germs, and steel, Jared Diamond I'm alluding to, that's what destroyed all of these folks. All right, so Back to the point, during the Dwapara Yuga is the destruction of, or either that which is happening now, or the beginnings of the creation of dogma, structure, etc., that had to be built in the darkness in order to maintain the protection of certain kinds of superpowers. So, like Catholicism, the Mass, the Holy Mass, protects transubstantiation as a superpower that human beings have access to. Now, in the darkness, in the Kali Yuga, all of that's squirreled away and kept safe by hierarchy, by dogma, by physical external structure, etc. And it's kept safe, and then people kind of forget what it even means. And then comes the Dwapara Yuga and divine disruptors who come in and go blink, blink, and they just destroy the whole thing. They destroy the whole thing, and what happens? The bird gets loose. The bird gets loose. That's the quickening, the awakening, that people start to realize, well, while I don't need the structure of all this stuff, what's at the heart of it is exactly what I want. Right? So at the core of Islam and the monotheistic beliefs, even the core of Buddhism, even the core of Jainism or Hinduism, there are these beautiful birds that live in these structures. So these disruptors change your mindset. Don't be mad. Don't assume that these things are all crazy, that they have no point. You're wrong. Every single bomb that drops, every mess, this sounds radical, it's because it is. I am being very radical. It all has perfect order to it. There's a reason why all this is falling apart. And it doesn't feel good because we've really put a lot of effort and love and time and energy and money and anything you can think of. So much power has been put into these structures, physical and mental, emotional, spiritual, political, economic, etc. So it feels very painful because we've all worked, actually all of us have worked quite hard to keep them going. And now they're falling apart, every one of them. And it's the president of the US is only one of the many divine disruptors that are taking part in the exact perfect role they got put into. They're playing precisely the role they were meant to. And listen, you want them to. Otherwise, you're going to have to do it. And you don't want to have the level of enemies these people have. So otherwise, we're going to have to do it. So as all this falls apart, it's going to lead us to the golden age, which is much more loving, more local, more present. It's going to have all the beautiful birds free of all these structures that had to be there. The dogma melts away. And meanwhile, the superpowers arise and they come right out. Transubstantiation is your divine right. Your divine right to be an immortal soul. Your divine right to have access to resurrection. Your divine right to have access to perfect healing. Folks, death, the way we do it, is simply a bad habit born of the Kali Yuga. The divine disruptors, they make everything look insane for a while, but they're, in the end, going to remind you that all that was a bad habit too. That's the truth. That's what a divine disruptor is.
Awesome. Thank you. Wow. They are doing their job. They are serving their purpose, whatever that happens to be, even though sometimes we might question it and think, oh my goodness, what is happening? But it's all happening for a reason.
And awake people like us, all of us, we cycle through all these identities. You're not relegated to go sit in one identity. I'm quite happy to be a divine disruptor when the time calls. And, that's kind of what I am to the new age. I'm a disruptor to the New Age movement and have been for 15 years.
Absolutely.
But we all get called, and you're summoned. You're summoned from the heart, your body, your gut. Your gut will lead you. It's not logical. It'll be very obvious though, and you'll be able to be given the opportunity to ask the right people to ask right questions at the right time, right? So like what Sarah's going through, and she needed to ask somebody for that level of insight, something deep down in her spirit she already knows is true, right? But I'm just here to remind her, and that's what we do for each other. All of you remind me all the time of stuff. And so it's definitely a mutual consciousness effort.
Absolutely. There's a question from Anna, and she says, if someone's looking for their soul purpose and life path, way to serve, etc., what could we tell them? Or is connecting with the soul just tapping into stillness? Like there's two questions, but maybe similar.
Yeah, well, she's got the right equation. You'd have to flip it. So you answered your question, which is stillness. Yeah, stillness is 100% the idea. You're not going to be able to perceive the clear light if you're not still. The clear light, that's because the clear light is still. Its nature is stillness. It's perfectly still. It's the screen. It's the screen. And your awareness is moving. The purpose of you being here is always the same. Everybody has the same purpose. Most people don't like to hear that. They'd rather like to be quite unique. And you are. But the problem is that people are lied to about purpose. So then humans go seeking a bunch of purpose and dharma and like, well, what's my path? And guys, it's the same. Literally, everybody, it's the same. And once you fix that in your mind, then a lot of things actually start to feel a lot better. So what is it? What's the purpose? You're literally here to create novel creation, novel experience. It doesn't mean that it's got to be nice or pleasant, or in fact, it's the other way around. Novel experience will always have duality involved. There's always going to be lots of silver linings and craziness along the way, no matter where you're going. So the purpose is the same. It's also to be able to go home while you're still aware. So the human purpose, because the purpose of consciousness is novel experience. So that means that your cup and an asteroid and a star in a different galaxy, they're all doing the same thing. They're all having a brand new experience every moment that's required by God. And that's what God wants. God wants to know, well, what is this person or asteroid or cup or star going to do with what's presented to them? I want to know. That's the power of our universe, is to create that level of novel learning. Now, the important part too is that when you're aware of your that purpose, that novel experience is all that's why suffering is allowed. It's actually necessary because there has to be those dynamics. There's always going to be an opposition no matter what position you're in consciousness. Once you're okay with that and you've welcomed that part, now you can have a different kind of experience. And now you're going to perceive yourself as the real version of you. And it's not something that's named. It's immortal. It's a quality, but it has awareness. And the awareness is the most important part, because that awareness, the light perceiving the screen, and the screen perceiving and welcoming the light of awareness, that's what creates the universe. So the human experience is unique because we actually can grasp the concept that your perception of the universe is creating the universe. We can grasp that. So once you do that, then the personal stuff, well, that doesn't seem sort of like that big of a deal. It's not even something that you have to worry about that much, because it's going to happen inevitably. You're part of a bigger function, which is the divine order. So the goal then changes. The personal purpose changes. The personal purpose is to become one with your greater self that's immortal, and allowing that immortality to actually change and create reality. So the personal purpose is always to go back home while still aware of the journey that your body is taking home, because you are not your body, but you come from source. Therefore, you can be home. You can be home. We call it the little death. You can always be home. You're aware always of what home is and that you're there the whole time while your body journeys back home, because you are not your body. And that's what we call being awake. So that's what the purpose is. The seeking about who you are, identity, past lives, precise nature of your soul, all of these things are an identity search. You're messing with your brain's algorithm when you do that. You've made your brain go seek more identity. Swap it up, give up the identity, become immortal, which you are already. This is why Shefali says, like, it feels like these things are true, and like that we're reaching out, we're grasping them. That's because they're already true. You're already enlightened. You're already awake. Now I'm just asking you to chip away at the things that are false, keeping you from that full body experience. So that's the game. That's the purpose. That's the effort. It's not going to be about exactly what role or play you're going to play out or what you're going to say. All of that's already going to naturally occur, and you don't have to worry about it. So when you work in divine order, there's less work. You don't work. It's literally less doing, a lot less, because you're already there. You're just simply in witness, watching the embodiment and all of the other materium follow suit, continuing the journey to do the same thing, go the same place that Hitler and Buddha both went to. We're heading there too. It's always home, and it's there, and it's been there all along. That's
Yeah,
the trick.
absolutely. And there's a question from Teresa. Thank you for that, by the way. That was awesome. It's just like, I could listen to you talk about that specifically for forever. It's like just sometimes when I get in my head, it's like, oh, I forget. And
Oh, easily, sure. Our poor
it's like,
brains.
yeah, exactly. Teresa asked if time has Elizabeth noticed a big shift in the energetics of the moon starting about 1 week ago. She says a new clear and clean version of her is available now, so much so she may be safe to remote view now.
I have no idea. I know that some of the people I talk to have been noticing the moon being clear. It's hard for me to tell because I'm up so high. But obviously, the electromagnetic field continuing to disappear, it's going to create less distortion. And the moon reflects directly the radiation from the sun. So the full moon actually still is irradiating the earth when it's bringing all that reflective light. It's still actual radiation, interestingly. So I couldn't say. I don't tend to put my eyeballs on any one particular uh, celestial body, and the moon is a huge, giant, incredibly powerful machine, and um, and everyone's kind of now putting their attention on it, and I think it's a distraction from the sun, because the sun is like everybody's like honestly. Sending astronauts to the moon at the moment as the sun is pumping out these solar flares is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in my life. Which makes me question if it's real, because you're sending people out to go get baked potato all the way. And I don't understand why they would do that. It just doesn't make any logical sense. It's not a good time to be in space right now. So I have my eyes on the sun, folks. Like,
Yeah.
the moon's gonna do its thing, and the moon is the moon, and we're gonna hopefully take back the moon, I hope. But the sun, the sun is the biggest player. The sun is the subject of the sentence. So I wouldn't worry so much about the moon. The moon's going to do what it needs to do to heal, and it's meant to heal. It's meant to be a changed space, a changed relationship for sure. Just like our relationship with the ocean right now, another place we are not attending to, right? Lots of, or the inner earth, all this kinds of changes going on. Don't be distracted by the moon.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So, anybody else have any last questions? Otherwise, we're going to take some last words of wisdom from Elizabeth. It's like, what more could she share with us that can assist us in awakening our consciousness even more, expanding our consciousness even more? Just, yeah.
Exactly. Well, I love people owning the concept that they too are divine disruptors. Yeah, own it. Own that part of you. Yes,
So there's
for
a
sure.
question from Amy. She has her hand raised. So Amy, go
Okay.
ahead.
Hey, Amy.
Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, how are you?
Good.
I'm good.
We can
Thank
hear you
you.
now.
Good to see you, both of you. So my question is, I told you that my like previously that I really want to work with the police and human trafficking and kind of end all of that.
Mhm.
So
I
right
remember
now I
you.
am in a position, thank you. I'm in a position to work with schizophrenic clients in the court systems for mental health,
Wow.
and I'm trying to be the divine disruptor there, and it's very, very overwhelming. You know how
Oh,
they
I'm
treat
not
the
kidding.
clients in the hospitals and everything. It's just every day I'm getting more angry and more impassioned. So I bring holy water everywhere. I started doing that.
Good. Good,
And I
good,
like
good.
the idea of putting visions in people's mind of like positive things.
Mhm.
That's great. I've done that with animals many times, but I forgot about humans.
Yeah, you can do it with them too. Sure. In
What would
institutions,
yeah.
layers of vision.
Okay.
Yeah, bring the holy water. I think your question is how else can you be more effective
Mm-hmm.
and protect yourself?
Yeah, and then also like not get so like angry because then I'm making silly mistakes and I'm adding to the problem of my stress with like, not checking the right boxes because I'm getting overwhelmed with the
Get it?
intensity.
Sure. All right. So here's something. All right. So I sound pretty darn stoic. And well, I'm the oldest of seven, and I was a nanny to nine children who were all incredibly mentally ill and all sorts of stuff. Um, and so I've been around this kind of stuff, and I've also worked with disabled adults and Marines and veterans and all kinds of people with all sorts of different mental illness. But when I've gone through and done some remote viewing on some of the Dark Order structures, now, of course, Amy is very bravely physically going into these structures, right? Some people are called to it. She's an action taker. It's a very specific role and it's very vital, and we all need the action takers just as much as perceivers or researchers or people trying to understand the future. And so whenever I do remote viewing of these kinds of things, you have to do a lot of really good research way beforehand to be able to do a safe remote view. Otherwise, you're going to possibly come up against things that you weren't expecting, and it's very, very dangerous and physically so. And over these years, because I've been remote viewing since I was 2, and over these years, I've come across, as you can imagine, some of the worst possible things you could ever see, that you could ever imagine, that you could ever have created, and far, far worse than anything you can possibly come up with in your head right now. And so that really messes with somebody if they're doing real proper remote viewing. And I had to have a different way of doing things because that kind of thing started happening to me too. I was starting to get angry in all the time and upset and depressed and confused and despair and all these big emotions, even apathy some days where I was like, I just don't care anymore. And realized that I was avoiding these feelings, especially beforehand when I was doing research on stuff. I was avoiding all these feelings, and then I'd go do a remote view and I'd feel so much worse afterwards, to the point where I'd be ill in bed, right? It literally makes us sick when we're around this stuff if we don't have a way to clean up our feelings and acknowledge that, of course, we must feel these horrible feelings. So I started to change the protocols of the way I was doing things. And those of you who've learned remote viewing from me, you haven't had to do this, because I'm not taking you places where you're going to go witness horrific, awful, evil things and like get killed or danger. I'm not doing that. We're going nice places. But I had to get seriously crazy, unbridled level rage beforehand and after. Because if I'm remote viewing or I'm in it and I have emotions, reactions, right? So Amy, your bigger question is, how do I remain invisible?
Mm-hmm.
How do I remain invisible? Babe, you can't. You can't if
Mm-hmm.
you have thoughts and feelings. But you can if you have thoughts and feelings beforehand and
Okay.
afterwards, and you create special space where you're allowed to just go nuts, right? And so like I would
Mm-hmm.
scream in my pillow, I would cry, I'd even go so far as to create a space where I was allowed to envision total revenge, where I could be like some superhero killer and like murder all these people. And anyone who knows my personality, like I'm the opposite of that. But holding that was poisoning me.
Yeah.
Allowing myself and my personality and my mind horse and my emotion horse to just be allowed to run crazy in a safe corral, in a space where I'm just allowed. I'm allowed to have that level of reaction and without bounds. And that is so precious. Please. So what you do to be invisible
Mm-hmm.
is you got to balance it out, right?
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with the intensity that you are, which is seriously intense, because it's in every level intense.
Mm-hmm.
You're right in the dark order stuff. Be allowed to be upset beforehand. Make 5-10 minutes space where you just freak out.
Okay.
And I mean it, because you got to let yourself get to the extremes of your feelings, and then afterwards when you come back, do the same. Get just totally flipped out, and
Okay.
and like do whatever, throw things, have a space where you're like, this is my Tupperware room, where I'm gonna throw Tupperware at the walls.
Yeah.
Or just whatever, pillows and Tupperware and stuff that can't break. And avoid drinking too much, avoid trying to suppress the feelings. Don't overeat before or after, but rather make space for the extremes to be
Mm-hmm.
allowed to do that. And oh my gosh, you're going to find that your stoic, super still, impervious, non-reactive, totally invisible version of you shows up when you really need her to. And you
Oh,
won't be
good.
making mistakes, because you made room for yourself to actually be a real human.
Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you. And we're collaborating more because there's a police department that picks up the clients, and they have been advocating to do it correctly for a long time. So they're also watchdogs about how oppressive the
fantastic.
court system is. And then we just had a probation meeting, and I was praying a probation in the meeting. I was praying in the rosary. So the
Yes.
probation people saw me and they started praying too. So thank you. But
Ooh,
that's good to have a container to
the
release and
rosary
then be
is
like,
powerful. Yeah, that helps, of
yeah,
course. The holy metals, the
yeah,
holy water, oil of chrism, if you can get a hold of
yeah.
it.
I have a different oil from
Mhm.
Lords, and then one from one of
Ooh,
the holy sectors. So because I listened to your mom's
powerful.
presentation, I've been praying to Mother Mary more, and I've been
Oh,
praying
good. I'm
more
so
holy
glad.
water, and I'm trying to like get in there and smash things as much as possible so we can have a new
So
foundation.
here's somebody to bring in
Yeah.
who will match everything really nicely. Saint Joseph.
Mhm.
Most people forget
Okay.
about him. Joseph,
Yes.
Jesus' stepfather, Joseph was
Mhm.
called the terror of demons because he was so pure of thought, he was invisible. Like no one even thinks about him to this day. But if you pay attention to him, he's literally called
Mhm.
the terror of demons because his thoughts were so pure, his thoughts, words, and deeds were so pure that he became a mystical dreamer, and that's why he was able to dream and the angels would talk to him and lead them to safety because he was
Mhm.
obedient. But he's so pure thoughts, pure words, pure deeds.
Okay.
Bring him in and he'll bring a whole other level of power to the situation.
Thank you. And St. Jude has been helping too.
Yeah, I love
Beautiful.
him too. So
Okay.
those of you who
Thank
don't
you.
know, Saint Jude is the saint of impossible cases.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I
Awesome.
appreciate
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
Amy.
you.
Yep.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good job. Wow. Amazing work. There's a question from Josie, and she's asking, how does human sacrifice feed this dark order galactic AI? She says, I know this is a basic question.
Not a basic question, it's the other way around. I could probably spend like several days telling you. Um, so my answer can't be really complete because that would go into literally the past 30 years of research. Longer because my mother and grandmother both spent most of their lives understanding this too. So it's not a simple answer. It's not a simple question. But the basics that I can give you for you to chew on that'll be enough is simply that when the human being is forced through an unnatural death, our death creates portals. And that's why conscious death is so empowering and important and such a key part of being human as a superpower. Conscious death is a superpower. It literally can create huge, massive change. One guy died, 2,500 years ago named Jesus, and his conscious death has made more of an impact on consciousness than almost any other person. And then we can name several others whose same conscious death did the same, like Buddha, etc. But the removal of the ability of the human being to die a conscious and natural death and the utilization of that in an opposite way, it opens these portals because these different kinds of beings in the dark order, also humans who are not willing to do the inner work to have power, but rather want everyone else's energy to create power, so power over at everybody's expense. These folks, they don't have the ability to open dimensions. They can't open portals. They can't do anything with the really cool technology that they stole. And they stole enormous amounts of technology from many, 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 many species and planets beyond this galaxy. And they worship it, right? But they don't have the ability to actually use half of it because half of what they stole was actually built by human beings who utilize their multidimensionality to create such technology that could last so long, or be useful in ways that are beyond our knowing. So the fact is that that's one reason why humans are sacrificed. The second keystone is that the utilization of human blood is very powerful, and it can create different kinds of sensations and outcomes and responses in the body. And so vampirism, or what we might call pedivores, people who are specifically targeting children, which is another keystone, is the child trafficking part, specifically children, and the entitlement that the Dark Order has over our children, all this stuff. These things are part of an obsession with longevity. And so they use the human form and DNA to create a false longevity. Now, there's many other reasons why human sacrifice is utilized and why it's the most important keystone, the most important factor. It's a linchpin that runs the entirety of the Dark Order beyond this planet. So any other Dark Order that's in our galaxy is also using human beings and our bodies and our blood and our experiences and our multidimensionality and our spiritual power against us, but they're also using it to continue to try to attain and retain power and longevity. So that's the short version of what probably would be many days long workshop of me explaining exactly how this stuff works and all the other keystones that make it so the Dark Order runs. But that's the basics, and that stuff did not start here on Earth. It started way, way, way before anything happened here. And so it was taught to Homo sapiens. It was brought here as a function of the Dark Order. And it's not natural. It goes against natural law. And the karma that has actually been gathered is so immense that the end of the Dark Order is going to be incredibly brutal because of how bad that karma really is, to have used human beings and especially children in that way. That's the short answer.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you could definitely talk about that for days and days and days. So the last question, Pragati says, I think my question was answered by the lady that works with the courts. She said, I've started working prosecuting rapists, but don't want to be overwhelmed with anger and fear about what happened to the mostly women. Would I create space before and after work to be
Yes,
angry, fearful, and any other emotions that come up?
absolutely. And make it like really give yourself a chance to be allowed and notice everything that comes up. It's not just going to be anger and fear and other emotions. It's going to be confusion. It's going to be despair. It's going to be really big stuff. And if you want to take it to a whole other level, expressing yourself before and after and having space for it while sober, right, is key. Because what it does is it allows your embodiment not to retain all this in the fascia while you're trying to do your work, right? Now, the other piece, though, is that there's going to be all these other emotions coming up, things that seem out of control. You don't need to hold them. They're moving through you so you can be aware of them. And if you want to take it to a whole other level, then you offer it up too. And you say, Source, take this despair, this confusion, take this anger from me. I fully have got the wisdom of it. I've fully felt it. And you'll know because you'll feel very euphoric afterwards. You'll feel really chill. You'll feel stoic. You'll feel like I can actually do this. And then afterwards, you might have some more to express, but you'll feel the euphoria of the expression. But the next thing is you could hand it off and you could say, Source, take these terrible feelings and traumas in my body and turn them into the most healed outcomes for all parties involved, including these rapists. All parties involved, for whatever is needed in their spiritual growth, turn it into miracles for these people, right? And you can use your own emotional trauma to actually make your work far more refined and more powerful and have more impact. But it's not going to be what you fear or what you desire. It's not going to be what you want. Hand it off and say, take this very powerful, dense emotion, use it as a payment forward for the miraculous beyond my knowing. And then watch your cases unfold in ways way, way more powerful than you ever imagined. Watch the people involved have big breakthroughs, even the most evil ones, and watch them be able to actually connect to God in ways. And it didn't necessarily have to do because they were punished properly while justice has to be served. It could be that they ended up with that little chance to have a change of heart that then gives them an opportunity to do better wherever they're going to be, even if it's in jail. right? Because there's people in jail who can be guided to the light. And if that person is able to shift in any tiny little way, then they actually have a chance to help a lot of other people too. Here's another thing to consider. Um, you know, there's a lot of really weird people. There's bad people. There's difficult people. There's people who are very stupid. They genuinely aren't intelligent. And there's people who can't feed themselves and they're really intelligent. And then there's all sorts of people who can and and they seem to just have all these huge blocks or problems, etc. There's people who have incredible mental illness, you know, and we say, well, what are we going to do with all these people, as if they are burdens, right? And all of us too have also felt that we were sometimes when we were being abused, we've been made to feel like burdens too, right? But the truth is that there's only going to be so many moments in these people's lives where they are in the exact right place and time to achieve something that you didn't expect. And an example real quick is, you know, perhaps there's a young man and he's in an institution, right? Maybe he did so many drugs, now his brain is just mush. And he's pretty much half schizophrenic and he's on meds and he can't function in society. But he's in a recovery house, perhaps, with like all these different people. And this huge fire comes through. And he's the one who ends up being strong enough to be able to pick up some of these people out of this house, physically pick them up and bring them to safety, and perhaps even sacrifice himself to save the rest of the people in that house. Up to that very moment, all of us might have easily said that that man is useless and that he has simply been a burden on our society, until he was the one who could save everybody out of that house. Do not ever underestimate those moments. They are what make everything happen. And don't underestimate those rapists that you're persecuting, or these people who seem like big problems in our society, very evil people, narcissistic, possessed. They were all victims, all of them. That's the truth. And that they may very well need to play a very special role while they're in jail. They might play a very unique role. And it might be at the very end, at the very, very end, that their impact becomes clear. But you'll never truly know because only Source knows. So don't ever underestimate the presence of even the most difficult and disgusting people. They too will get their opportunities to be able to fulfill moments that are far beyond our awareness. So let it be so that all people get their opportunity to step into the divine role that they were given, wherever that might be. That's why people end up where they're at. And then you play the hand of karma sometimes to get them where they're at, because they need to be in jail. And that's exactly where they needed to be, way beyond your knowing, right? You see how tricky this is, but how precious everyone really is. So we can serve.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can serve with that awareness.
And that is a wonderful message to end our show with today, that each one of us is precious. And there are moments that can change our trajectory, our consciousness, and the trajectory of the planet and the collective. And we don't know what those moments are going to be. But like you said, only Source knows, right? And everything that is happening to us, for us, around us, I feel is also for our awakening, for our expansion of consciousness, for us to know who we truly are and what we are, and have that opportunity to connect with and merge with Source. right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I do have temper tantrums, so I'll give myself that.
Give
So,
yourself space. Let let the child self that is your embodiment do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like create an area for it. I'm serious.
exactly. And again, everything without judgment, right? It is truly about accepting ourselves, our journey, our humanness as well, right? So as much as we would love to be, so aware, etc., there are sorry, there are moments when we are not, when we are like children. And that's okay too, right? But it's about recognizing that there is so much wisdom available for us in each and every moment if we can step out of that small self and like you've mentioned this before, Elizabeth, on another call about surrendering all these situations, etc., these energies, these emotions, surrendering them up to the divine and letting the divine choose what to do with them, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. And that's what I need to remind myself too, because I have not been very good at surrendering. As everybody knows, it is one of my
It's
challenges.
honestly though, it's the hardest one.
It's a
But it
tough
is,
one.
it's the hardest one. It sounds easy.
Yeah.
It sounds easy.
It sounds so easy. It's like, yes, just surrender it. Okay. But yes,
It's not easy.
I'm still working on it. Um, But thank you for this wonderful, wonderful conversation. And thank you, everybody, for all your questions and comments and feedback in the chat. We're all looking so forward to the April 28th and what we're going to experience in that mini retreat happening on April 28th. For those of us who cannot be there live, we will have the recordings and the replay, and the replays are meant to watch again and again and again so that you can experience those experiences again, because there's going to be certain experiential processes or that you're going to experience in the mini retreat, but then you are meant to repeat that on your own as well afterwards. So I'm looking forward to it. I will try to be there. It depends on how long it's going to be. We don't know, but I probably have a show that afternoon, so I probably may not be able to stay for the whole thing, but I'll definitely be there for part of it. And then I will look forward to the replay. But this was brilliant, amazing. I always love talking about awareness, right? And consciousness and who we are and where we're going and where we're at right now, right? So there's so much hope for us. There's still so much happening for us, and it can happen in any moment, right? So expansion, oh my goodness, I can't talk anymore. Expansiveness, we'll say, and growth is available to us in every single moment if we're willing to receive it. And for me, it's about getting out of the identification, right? Stepping out of the identification more and more and surrendering that to the divine. So thank you for the wonderful wisdom and teachings, Elizabeth. This has been exactly what I needed, because I've
Big
been
hug to you.
I was going through stuff this weekend and I was like, oh, this is exactly what I needed. So thank you. Yeah, sending you big hugs. I hope you're feeling better. I hope your daughter is feeling better.
Same, same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so thank you so much, everyone. I will have the recordings out
Bless
in a little
everybody.
while. So please do go back and watch and listen. And please do register for the mini retreat on April 28th. So we look forward to seeing you then and experiencing wonderfulness.
Talk
Right?
to you
So
soon, everybody.
thank you so much, everyone. Until next time,
Good
may you
luck.
continue to be blessed with an abundance of joy, peace, love, happiness, prosperity, and radiant health. Sending you all so much love and blessings. Bye for now. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank you.